The fire crackled softly, casting long shadows across the clearing. The rangers gathered around, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. The night was cold, the air thick with the scent of pine and the promise of secrets untold. Have you ever stumbled upon something so unsettling that it feels as though the world has shifted around you? If you ever find a book bound in human skin lying on the forest floor, do not open it. It was a foggy spring morning, the kind where the mist clings to your skin and obscures everything more than a few feet away. The forest was eerily silent, the usual chorus of birds and insects muted by the thick fog. I was on a routine patrol, my senses heightened by the unnatural stillness. As I walked, a sudden flash of color caught my eye. There, half buried in the damp earth, was a book. It looked old, its cover worn and cracked, but it was the material that made my blood run cold. The book was bound in what unmistakably looked like human skin. The texture and color unlike any leather I'd ever seen. Strange symbols and patterns were etched into the cover, their meaning unknown but undeniably sinister. My initial reaction was a mix of horror and morbid curiosity. What kind of book could be so precious that someone would bind it in human skin? And what secrets could it hold? The air around me seemed to grow colder. As I reached out, the warnings from the veteran rangers echoed in my mind. They had spoken of such books, cursed objects left by dark practitioners to ensnare the curious and the unwary. I felt a shiver run down my spine, a primal instinct telling me to leave it be. I took a step back, my heart pounding in my chest. The urge to open the book was almost overwhelming, but I forced myself to turn away. The forest seemed to exhale, the tension easing as I distanced myself from the book. My steps quickened as I made my way back to the ranger station, the sense of unease lingering long after the book was out of sight. That night, sleep did not come easily. My dreams were filled with images of the skin-bound book and the dark knowledge it contained. In my nightmares, I saw shadowy figures hunched over ancient tomes, their eyes empty and their minds shattered by the secrets they had uncovered. I awoke in a cold sweat, the memory of the book vivid in my mind. The fire flickered, casting eerie shadows as the night deepened. The forest seemed to grow darker, the trees whispering secrets that were best left unheard. The book was still out there, waiting for its next victim, a reminder of the perils that lurked within whispering pines. The fire had burned down to glowing embers, casting a dim light that barely reached the edges of the clearing. The rangers sat in silence, absorbing the weight of the story. It was time to tell them about Margaret, a scholar whose curiosity led her down a dark path. Margaret was a brilliant mind, I began, my voice breaking the heavy silence. Margaret had arrived at Whispering Pines with a single purpose: to uncover the secrets of the forest. She had heard the legends, the whispered tales of ancient curses and forbidden knowledge, and she was determined to document it all. She was skeptical of the warnings, dismissing them as mere superstition. One overcast afternoon, Margaret ventured deeper into the forest than anyone had before. The sky was dark with heavy clouds, the air thick with the promise of rain. As she navigated the dense underbrush, she stumbled upon a small clearing. At its center, lying innocuously on the forest floor, was a book bound in human skin. Margaret's eyes lit up with a mix of excitement and disbelief. Here, finally, was the proof she had been seeking. She picked up the book, feeling the unsettling texture of the cover under her fingers. The symbols etched into the skin seemed to pulse with a life of their own, drawing her in. Ignoring the creeping sense of dread, she opened the book. The pages were filled with cryptic symbols and dark knowledge, secrets that seemed to whisper directly to her mind. As she read, a strange feeling washed over her, a sense of something ancient and powerful awakening within her. The forest around her grew silent, the air thick with an oppressive weight. Margaret's mind began to unravel as the knowledge seeped into her consciousness. The symbols danced on the pages, forming patterns that twisted her thoughts and filled her with an overwhelming sense of dread. Her notes became erratic, filled with nonsensical ramblings and disturbing drawings that hinted at the book's dark power. Margaret's descent into madness was rapid and terrifying. She heard whispers in the wind, saw shadowy figures at the edge of her vision, and felt an overwhelming sense of paranoia. Her once brilliant mind was shattered, leaving her a hollow shell of her former self. Days later, when Margaret failed to return, a search party was organized. We combed the forest, calling out her name, but there was no sign of her. Her campsite was found abandoned, her belongings scattered around as if she had left in a hurry. The only trace of Margaret was her journal, filled with fragmented entries and chilling sketches of the skin-bound book. The Rangers and I pored over her journal, trying to piece together what had happened. Her last entries were almost illegible, filled with desperate pleas and incoherent ramblings. It was clear that the book had shattered her mind, leaving her lost to the darkness of the forest. The fire flickered. The book bound in human skin was not just an object of curiosity. It was a trap, designed to ensnare and destroy those who dared to seek its forbidden knowledge. As the night grew darker, the sense of being watched intensified. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the silence heavy with the weight of untold secrets. Margaret's story was a warning, a reminder that some paths should never be walked, and some books should never be opened. The fire's glow dimmed, casting a faint, eerie light on the surrounding trees. The Rangers were silent, the weight of Margaret's fate heavy in the air. The forest around us felt more alive, as if it was listening, waiting. It was time to conclude the tale, to drive home the importance of the warnings we live by. After Margaret's disappearance, the forest never felt the same, I began. The sense of unease lingered, and the boundaries between our world and whatever lies beyond seemed thinner. In the aftermath of Margaret's disappearance, we doubled our efforts to understand what we were dealing with. We scoured old records, piecing together fragments of stories and legends. Whispering Pines had always been a place of mystery, but the truth was darker than we had imagined. We learned that the books bound in human skin were not merely ancient artifacts. They were cursed objects, created by dark practitioners to trap and destroy the minds of those who sought forbidden knowledge. These books were designed to ensnare the curious, their pages filled with dark secrets that could shatter a person's sanity. Old journals and historical accounts spoke of similar occurrences, scholars, explorers, and even villagers who had vanished after finding such books. Their final days were marked by madness, their notes and letters filled with ramblings and sketches that mirrored Margaret's descent. It was clear that these books were tools of malevolent forces, designed to claim the minds and souls of their victims. One particularly chilling account told of a small village near Whispering Pines. Long before it was abandoned, the villagers had found a similar book. Within weeks, the entire population had descended into madness. Their bodies were never found, and the village was left to the forest, a ghost town swallowed by the trees. The descriptions of the book were eerily similar to what I had seen. The same symbols, the same unnerving texture. The more we learned, the clearer it became that the books were not just dangerous, they were predatory. They lay in wait for those who could not resist their allure, drawing them in with the promise of knowledge. Once opened, they unleashed a torrent of dark secrets that the human mind was never meant to comprehend. Our research uncovered that these books were tied to an ancient ritual, one that had gone horribly wrong. The practitioners had sought to harness the power of the forest, but instead, they had created these cursed objects. Bound by dark magic, the books held the fragmented souls of those who had performed the ritual, their madness trapped within the pages. As the realization set in, we knew we had to be vigilant. The forest was filled with many dangers, but the books bound in human skin were among the most insidious. The grinning visitors, the candlelit paths, and the skin-bound books were all reminders that Whispering Pines held secrets that were best left undisturbed. The night grew colder, the fire reduced to glowing embers. The forest seemed to close in around us, the darkness deepening. The faces of the Rangers were solemn, the stories they had heard a stark reminder of the peril that lay within the woods. As I stood to leave, a cold breeze rustled the leaves, carrying with it the faintest whisper. It sounded almost like a voice, a distant echo of a warning long forgotten. I paused, listening intently, but the sound faded into the night. "Remember," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Some knowledge is not meant to be uncovered. The forest guards its secrets fiercely, and those who seek them out do so at their own peril." The rangers nodded, the gravity of the situation clear in their eyes. As we made our way back to the station, the sense of being watched never left us. The forest was alive with whispers, the shadows hiding secrets we were never meant to know. And as the night drew on, the forest seemed to breathe around us, its secrets hidden deep within the shadows. Somewhere, out there, the book still lay waiting. A silent trap for the next unwary soul who could not resist its call. The thought lingered, a chilling reminder that Whispering Pines was a place of mystery and danger, where the line between knowledge and madness was perilously thin.